We're having shortages in many commodities right now. Why isn't the price system raising prices to equilibrate supply and demand like you might have learned in your college economics class? I'm Dr. Bill Connerly. I connect the dots between the economy and business, and I'm being asked this a little bit, so here's an explanation. I'm not going to start off by showing you that supply and demand intersection that we taught in economics, but it will be there at the very end. But here's a literal explanation using words for those of you who are more comfortable with that. We've got supply and demand. Supply has not increased to match the demand after the demand increased. So why not? And normally we would expect prices to go up. Some people have hypothesized that companies are afraid that the government will get on their case, invoking price gouging laws. And there may be some truth to that, but I think there's a more important story going on here. And I'm going to use as an example something I'm familiar with, which was the ammunition shortage. We have one now, but we had one back in 2012 after the Sandy Hook school shooting. There were increased calls for gun controls and maybe limits on ammunition, and consumers responded to that by buying guns and ammunition while they could. It takes a while for the manufacturers to increase their production to match the increased demand. So the stores had limited supply. And then when there was supply available, some of the buyers said, oh, maybe instead of a box of 50, I'll get a case of 1,000 just in case. Just in case. So we had a rising shortage there, and I saw two different behaviors among the gun stores. One behavior, common in only a few small independent stores, was they jacked the price up. So they looked at how fast they were selling ammunition from the store and what they could get from their supplier, and they raised the price until their own customers' spending matched the supply that they were getting from the manufacturers. So the price system worked, but a lot of buyers or potential buyers were grumpy at the price gouging, the higher profits. The internet gun forums were full of nasty comments about the store owners taking advantage. The other approach was more common, and I saw it at Walmart and Cabela's. The stores kept the old prices. Any cost increase from their manufacturer they would pass on, but basically they kept the prices at the old prices, and then they ran out all the time. They'd get a shipment and it would sell out in a couple of hours. So the customer walked in, saw the price tag was a fair price, but then the shelf was empty. The customer was sad. The store was sad, but at least there was not that animosity between one and the other. This is a business to consumer story, but I see this a lot in the business to business world. I speak to my own consulting clients, and I talk to other companies, and what they say is they want a loyal customer. They want a customer who will stick with them when prices are going down, won't shop around too much. They expect a little bit. And then in exchange for the loyalty of the customer, the seller does not jack up the prices right away. Now, this isn't true in all markets. If you're buying a commodity like raw copper or pork bellies, you'll find it's a little bit different. But in most business transactions, there's a value on the loyalty. So the sellers are a little bit slow to raise prices. What they do have, they allocate to their existing customers. And if a new customer gets on the phone and says, hey, I haven't bought from you now, but I'd like some widgets, the customer says, hey, we're short on widgets. We cannot even serve our existing customers, so go away. This is a relationship. And that works in the short run. Over time, though, the prices will rise, as textbook economics says. But if you remember your textbook economics, you may recall that nobody said how long it was going to take, and it varies a good bit. So that's kind of the implicit deal. That's why we have some empty shelves, but we do have prices going up. Now, I'm going to give you that textbook explanation for those of you who are anxious to see it, but let me talk now about my newsletter just for 30 seconds. I put out a newsletter once a month with charts on the economy, my handwritten comments. You can get that by texting the word econ to 42828. Just enter those 5 digits as if it's a phone number, 42828. Text the word econ, and you'll be getting my newsletter. So when I was teaching economics many, many years ago, I started with a blackboard. Now it's white, of course. I put on the horizontal axis the quantity of goods or services sold. I put on the vertical axis the price, and I drew a supply curve. Companies would increase the amount that they supplied when prices were high. We don't know that it's a straight line. That was just a convenience. Then I would draw a demand curve, and it's downward sloping, reflecting that at high prices, consumers did not want very many. At low prices, consumers would want a lot. And we can find the equilibrium where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded at a particular price and a particular quantity. And that looks fine until we have an increase in demand. We could also do this with a reduction in supply, but let's just keep things simple. There's an increased demand, and if price stays the same, we have a shortage. That yellow line shows the difference between the quantity demanded, the quantity supplied at the old price. The solution is for the price to rise, and we move from one old equilibrium to another at a higher price. And what happens with the rising price is, first of all, we go up that supply curve, and companies say, oh, at a higher price, I'm willing to supply more products. But also, if you go right from the initial equilibrium along that yellow line to the increased demand, and then move kind of backwards up and to the left, people are saying, gee, I thought I wanted to buy more, but the price is up, so I don't want to buy quite as much more. The total quantity demanded will be higher, but not as high as if the price had not changed. And that's how we end the supply shortage. I'm Dr. Bill Connerly. I hope you enjoyed this. Watch more of my videos.